cable 18, channel 18, and we are without a monitor, and I figure everything is okay. I'm actually looking through your control room in there, and I believe that we're good enough. You gonna give me a TV?
Yeah, you're good.
I'm saying I want to see the TV.
Oh.
All right, folks, this is school, and in school, hey, sometimes you forget to pull the projector down or something like that. I know y'all are used to it, so hey, been there, done that. Appreciate you watching. Let's see if I can get you to make a plug for me for our YouTube channel. Last Hebrews class, which was really our first textual study, was last week, and we had 431 views. Now, listen, when we're talking about a 2-hour show, getting 431 individuals watching a 2-hour show, and I don't expect you to watch the whole thing. I mean, who has 2 hours to sit and watch unless you are one of the dedicated students? And I don't mean that you're not dedicated if you don't watch the whole 2 hours, but I'm saying there are some individuals that have basically said, we're getting this stuff down, and they make a block where they can watch for 2 hours so that they can keep the continuity going. And so for those of you, we hope that you are enjoying it. We get a lot of comments, we get a lot of feedback, and we do appreciate it. We appreciate the prayers and the continued encouragement. We appreciate the individuals who are supporting the school, who didn't used to support us at all. And so these daytime classes, they cost. And so what we're doing, I believe, 16 hours of school on TV per month, along with the 12 hours, I believe, that Caleb and I do every month at night. So then you add the 30 hours associated with the 2 a.m. show, and I'm pretty sure the math comes to 58 hours, 57 hours, depending on whether a month is a 29-day month, or a 30-day month, or a 31-day month. So a lot of stuff going on. So we certainly want you to keep praying for us. And what I'm asking you is tell someone about the school, tell someone about the YouTube. It is so simple if once you get started, and particularly if a person will go ahead and subscribe. That's one of the really important parts of this, is get someone to subscribe. Let's see. Let me see here. I'm gonna have to take this. I am on a 2-hour live broadcast. Hello? Okay, don't know. Let's see. Yes, I'm good. Did Caleb leave? Okay. All right, so what I'm going to go ahead and go through is getting you to hit the subscribe button. And that's going to be, I can't show you the subscribe button because this is my homepage, and I am already subscribed. I don't get to subscribe to my own YouTube, but there's a button somewhere that says allows you to subscribe, and what that means is you just simply get a notification. You see a little bell right there up here on the top. It's going to give you a notification that we are live, and so that will let you know that a new show is going on, and you don't have to watch it right then. You can go later, but it lets you know something new has come up. So today, as we get into this, I just basically want you to realize that there are some techniques, and it is something that you've got to get down when we're talking about how to study. Listen, y'all, if you've ever been in class, if you've ever been in any kind of class, probably it is the case that the teacher has told you, okay, we're in chapter 1, and we are in chapter 1. Last week, we did pretty much 2 hours having to do with chapter 1. But let me ask you this. When I say to you, we're in chapter 1, can we leave chapter 1? Do you have to actually stay in chapter 1 just because we're saying we're in chapter 1? Now, I'm not trying to get you to cause an uproar in your Bible classes. If you're having Bible classes somewhere, if you're in a preaching school, I'm not trying to get you to cause an uproar or start anything. I'm just simply telling you. Just because you're in chapter 1 does not mean that you have to stay in chapter 1. As a matter of fact, if you do study like that, you are actually hurting yourself. Why would you do that to yourself? Why would you say, I have to master chapter 1 when there are things that would be in a letter, in an epistle, that would be farther along that would actually, it would help you. So it would help you with this. So no, if someone says, we must finish this chapter, don't let that get into your head. Now, if you're sitting in a class and they're going through chapter 1, I'm not telling you to say to the teacher or to anyone else, I'm not telling you to start a revolution and say, look, we don't have to finish chapter 1. But I'm telling you, you don't have to. You can read ahead. I mean, we did 4 classes on just simply like a time drop, putting you inside of what's going on during basically the time frame that this particular letter would occupy. And the reason we did that is because we wanted you to have a chance to realize what individuals would be going through who would be getting a letter like this. And so we also wanted you to familiarize yourself with what first century Christianity is. Why? Because just because you're not in the first century doesn't mean you don't have to live like they did. That's the whole point of this. We're trying to become individuals who are followers of Christ, no matter what century we occupy. And Paul said in 1 Corinthians 11:1 that he wanted those individuals to follow him as he followed Christ. That's the whole point. And so that's what we're trying to get you to do. We're not trying to get you to follow us. We're trying to get you in the zone of first century Christianity. If you wonder what we are about in the Martinsville Church of Christ, the Danville Church of Christ, the Church of Christ, worldwide, if you're listening and you're not a member, is we are trying to get people in the zone as far as your mindset is concerned and act like a first century Christian. Think like a first century Christian. What does that mean? It means everybody is supposed to be on the same page. Well, you just said a minute ago, Johnny, that you don't have to stay in chapter 1. That was a metaphor just now, same page. Isn't that just a colloquialism that we use? And people around us, they know what that means. Now, a foreigner might not know what that means, stay on the same page, but we're supposed to actually all be on the same page. We're supposed to be following the same pattern, and we're supposed to be doing things similar. Now, we wouldn't have to do everything the same. You don't have to have the same kind of carpet. You don't even have to have carpet. You don't have to own a building. All of those kinds of things will be things that are optional. Now, this is not a class basically on how to figure out what is authorized, if you use that term, what you have permission to do or not to do, but we're just saying those are the kinds of things that are in the opinion area, but there are going to be some things that are doctrinal, and those will be things that you have to stay with. So, how to study. I am not saying that we have to stay in chapter 1. Now that we've looked at that, look at this. At what we have to look at what they're being told. That's what we've done. In Acts chapter 1, in Hebrews chapter 1, we were looking at what they were being told in chapter 1, just a little bit. But now we need to look at what they are being told. And that is very, very key when you're trying to figure out what is the book about. What is, if this is a purposeless book, or if I don't know what the purpose is, that's, I want to know what they are being told. And I won't find that out in chapter 1 alone. And I won't find it out either, really, by reading it once or twice. I think I've told you on several occasions that, and I can't help it if you don't have unlimited data. This phone, basically, it's a $35 a month plan, unlimited data, texting, whatever. $35, so I have unlimited data. I can watch YouTube as long as I want to. And so when I'm driving, I just basically say, the book of Hebrews, audio Bible, KJV. I speak into my phone. It brings up a YouTube website, and so I can listen to the book of Hebrews between Martinsville, Virginia, and Danville. It's 41 minutes is how long it takes to listen to Hebrews. So look, what you're doing is you're familiarizing yourself with what they are being told. And what they are being told is relevant to what is happening. In other words, when you hear instructions that people are getting, then you get an idea of what is going on. If you get instructions, you hear people getting instructions and they're being told, listen, you need to fix your magazine, you need to make sure that there's no sand in it, and you need to make sure that all of your bullets, all of your artillery, whatever you want to call it, your rounds, all of them are clean. And you know, I'm going to know that this is law enforcement, this is could be security. You see what we're saying? If you're reading instructions and you start paying attention to what they're being told, it gives you an idea of what's going on. And so why would you just want to be like just keyed in on just this one part? Aren't you curious? I'm telling you, I am so curious. I want to immerse myself. We use the term a lot on what does the Bible say? We use the term embedded. Individuals used to be or have become in battles and wars that we've had probably since 1960. They allowed media to be embedded. I don't have any regard for that anymore. I don't trust any media. So, but back then, I thought it was very interesting. I have no idea whether it was really honest back then or not. You know, when they were showing the bodies of the Vietnam vets, I don't know if that was a politicized move by the three major networks. I don't know, but I'm just telling you. That was something that was just totally new. Well, this is what we're talking about. Literally, y'all, if you put your mind to it, you can embed yourself into New Testament Christian life. I'm talking about you can get in there and you can get in Paul's head. You can get so familiar with what is going on that you know that you basically know the account really well. And when you know the account really well and then you go back to it, then you start picking up stuff that you didn't see before because you're not having to concentrate on the fact that you don't know anything about that. Now I'm going to make an apology about this time. I do apologize for you having to watch our shows like cold. Many of you have asked, well, what are you going to be studying next week? Now, I did start out with assignments when we first began our Hebrews class. If you remember, the assignment that I gave is that you need to go back and you need to see things that Jesus was saying and the preachers were saying. You need to go back and hear the sermons that were being preached. And like the arguments that Jesus would get into with the Pharisees and the Sadducees, you need to hear what Jesus actually was saying to them. Now, you may not realize this, and I used a word that I don't really like to use because it's difficult, colloquialisms. What colloquialisms are, they are familiar phrases to people in a particular area that you wouldn't know what they mean if you were to hear them. Say, for instance, a person from Asia that's never been here before, and let's say they're a third world country in Asia, a third world country out in the Pacific realm. If you were to say someone had an egg on their face, that would be a colloquialism that we would use. They had no idea what you're talking about. And so you need to realize that that's what is going on in the New Testament. Jesus was consistently saying things that they absolutely knew what he was saying. And now some individuals didn't. They had heard it before. When you basically hear, let's just say you're an older person, a lot of older people used to use the King James, and everybody knew what the King James sounded like, and they were used to hearing phrases. They would be hearing portions of Scripture, and you would just recognize, hey, somebody's talking Bible here. This is the way these individuals are. And so as you're listening to Jesus and he is talking, he is consistently bringing up things that he says about himself that they should be recognizing and that they're going to key in on. And that is what is going on, y'all. The individuals that are following Jesus around on a regular basis, let me just get you into John 18, verse 19, and I'll give you an example of this. In John chapter 18, verse 19, this to me is extremely interesting because this is just, it's weird. Then the high priest asked Jesus of his disciples and of his doctrine. You see it right here? They have Jesus arrested now, and they're asking him his doctrine. You see, that's what they were really trying to figure out. And he's basically saying, what is y'all's problem? For 3 years, I've been teaching publicly in the synagogues, in the temple, and I didn't do anything in secret. And so why are you asking me about the doctrine? He has said enough about who he says he is and who individuals need to receive him as and what his intentions are, that they get it. They're just trying to find something that they can seize on so that they can actually say, okay, this is something that would be treasonous behavior or language, and they ended up resorting to be good Romans. The Jewish leadership, oh, well, let's be good Romans. Well, how are you going to do that? Well, let's pit Jesus against Caesar. And let's just let the Romans know that this dude is actually a traitor. He's planning on sedition. He's planning on an upheaval, a revolution. And you see what we're saying? But basically, I'm telling you also, in order to deal with the book of Hebrews, you need to be able to, get familiar with all of the sermons. What does that mean? Peter's sermon, Acts 2. Peter's speech, Acts 3. Peter and John's answer, Acts chapter 4 to the Sadducees. Peter's answer and John's answer in Acts chapter 5. And what they said once they were released from jail in Acts chapter 5. Stephen's speech before the gathered crowd. You need to go through that. You need to get to know it, and you start seeing what it was that Jesus was keying in on in their scriptures that would lead them to him and convince them that he is who he says he was. Now, what's so important about that? Change the world. That's what's important. I can't tell, Daniel, I don't generally take phone calls during this segment. I don't care, but I can't tell when it is a call that's in the station.
I'll let you know.
Okay. So you see what we're saying? We're basically saying these individuals changed the world once they realized that Jesus really was who he said he was. Why? Well, what can you do when you have the Son of God on your side? All right, so aren't you curious? Aren't you curious what they are actually being told? Well, did you realize that you are reading someone else's mail? Now then, now that I've said it that way, you're reading someone else's mail. Now, have you ever gotten a 13-page letter and you said, I'm not interested in this part, and I know something is over here, and I'm going to move ahead and read some of the other part to see what's going to be said. And hey, it's perfectly legitimate. This is somebody else's mail. And so you can look at it. Now, that's my point. You don't have to stay in chapter 1. This is basically someone else's mail. You end up finding out what's going on in these people's lives, and it's extremely important to understand that. And so let's do that this morning. We're reading somebody else's mail. Can we find out about these people by reading their mail? By reading ahead? I want to study chapter 1. Let me tell you, I want to study chapter 1 because chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, chapter 5. Amazing information, and I know what it does to these people because I have read the end of the letter. I know what it was able to accomplish. I know what he was intending to accomplish. And I look at it and I think about it and I think this is magnificent. The manner in which he is going about this is building up a lagging faith or the possibility of a lagging faith. You have an individual that's writing this. The apostles had prophetic revelation. They knew certain things were coming. All of them knew certain things were coming. I mean, Jesus flat out said that Jerusalem was going to be destroyed in their lifetime. So these individuals that are writing these letters have prophetic ability. They're able to say things about what time it is. They don't know exact time. Jesus said that wasn't going to be given to them. As far as the exact hour, the exact day that Jerusalem was going to be begun to be destroyed. So I know what this letter accomplished. I know what he's trying to accomplish. And guess what? I want to do the same thing. I want to help individuals. Listen, man, we're in the midst of just a major meltdown in the United States history. Nothing like this, aside from possibly the Great Depression or the Civil War, is in any way comparable. And when I say possibly, the reason I said possibly is because we haven't seen the end yet. We don't know what this saga actually is going to end up being like. You have the people in politics. They're pitting everybody against everybody. And is Charles still in the building, Daniel? Do you know anything about what's going on today as far as the news is concerned? Have they had any kind of verdict or anything like that? Okay, see what I'm saying? We have things going on today, not today, but in our world currently, that the next day could just be an explosion. I'm saying just all out, who knows what in the world is going to happen. And so, you see, it's extreme. 2020 was extreme. A lot of individuals quit going to church in 2020. Still not assembling. 2021, we're here in April 2021. Lots of things are going on. This is a great book. This is a book that mirrors the time that we're in. It is a book that is made for this time. It's a book that was made for World War II, like the things they were having to deal with. You think a lot of people had struggles in World War II as far as their religion is concerned? Man, you're over here in Europe and you're killing people everywhere. Every which way you're having to kill people. And what do you think that did to a person's faith? Well, the U.S. government gave away Bibles. I have one. I have my father-in-law's U.S. Army issue New Testament. It's green. They were giving out Bibles. They wanted their troops to be in good shape. They had chaplains, and they were trying to help them. Why? Because it's a difficult time. This is your book, someone else's mail. When you're reading through this, you end up figuring out some things about these people. Now, here's something you'll find in Hebrews chapter 6. You need to know this. You really need to know this before you start your study. I'm not talking about reading. I'm saying before you really start your study of the book of Hebrews, you need to know about Hebrews 6, verse 10. You need to know something about what the letter itself says about the characters that are in it. Now, if you don't, guess what? You're just basically, you're feeling your way through with the lights off. When you could, in fact, be introduced to the persons whose mail you're reading. You ever think about that? If you knew the person that you're reading their mail, would that not make a difference? You know, you just pick up this random piece of mail and you just start reading it. I'm saying in reality, you find a letter in your mailbox that didn't come to you. It came to your mailbox, but it's not to you, and you just start reading it, and it's signed, Love, Samantha. The reason I use Samantha, she used to be our neighbor. She's gone now. It said, Love, Samantha, and it's all whatever, but let's just say I didn't know who Samantha was. And I'm just reading this random letter. Do you think that's going to make any sense to me necessarily? I mean, would your interest be piqued? I mean, it would just be so different if you actually knew, let's say that it was a neighbor down the road away. Now, you might be saying, that you'd read their mail? No. But the point is, if it was somebody else's mail and you had a chance to read it, I know there's plenty of people who have basically read other people's emails that they weren't supposed to read. And boy, you were tearing it up, like finding out little tidbits or whatever. You see my point here? If you know something about the persons, then when you go back to chapter 1 and you start looking at it again, after you've figured out, well, what kind of people are these? What's going on with these folk? Well, number one, if you're reading books about Hebrews, you're going to get a lot of information that people are going to tell you, and it'll seep into your mind, and you're not even going to know if it's really true or not. You need to do this on your own, and I'm saying this is your assignment. Go in, read it like you're reading somebody's mail, and pick up the things that are personal. You got two assignments. You're basically finding out all the ways that Jesus went around talking about himself, his apostles went around talking about him, and the evangelists went around talking about him so that they could convince people to convert. How did they do it? What terms did they use? What was the methodology to get somebody to completely leave behind their former lifestyle, their family religion, if you will, their former conversation? Peter says it a lot of times that way. Paul says it a lot of times that way. You get these individuals to leave their former vocation. How did they do it? This is the place. All right, here we go. That's how you do it. You basically study the manner in which they use the Old Testament to establish, lay a foundation that produced faith enough, belief enough for you to act outside of what your norm is and become a follower of somebody else. Now, that's all this process is, y'all. One, does the Bible say, is successful because we always have the Bible in front of you, and if we're telling you something, you're seeing it. So I'm going to tell you something now about these individuals. I know something about them. Why? Because it's right here in the book. For God is not unrighteous to forget your work and labor of love, which you have showed toward his name, in that you have ministered to saints and do minister. I'm liking these people. You see this? That just gave you an idea, a piece of the puzzle as to who these people are and how this individual feels about them. And he is telling them how God feels by inspiration. So it's a wonderful thing to be able to know how God feels about you. Well, I can tell you this, you can know how God feels about you right here. If you act in this way and you truly are following the doctrine that is according to godliness, I'm saying Jesus' true doctrine, then guess what? God is not going to forget your labor. But you know what? If you're not actually following Jesus at all, if you're following a man-made religion, then you don't have any works that he's even paying attention to. And the way is broad, let me tell you. The way away from Jesus, enter you in, this is Matthew 7:13, enter you in the straight gate, for wide is the gate, broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many there be which go in thereat. Because straight is the gate, and narrow is the way which leadeth to life, and few there be that find it. Now, let's drop down to verse 20. Wherefore by their fruits you will know them. You'll know who is a false teacher and who isn't. Not every one that says unto me, Lord, Lord, will enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. Now, many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord. And he says in verse 23, I will profess I never knew them. Why? Because they work iniquity. That basically means they are lawbreakers. They're outlaws. Now, let's go back to this. That's why it's so important. Many will say to you, I am one of Jesus' followers. They will come with Jesus' name, but that doesn't mean they're really Jesus people. And so if you know that you are one of Jesus' people, if you know that you're a child of God, that you have truly obeyed the doctrine that is in fact the New Testament doctrine, look at this. God is not unrighteous to forget your work and labor of love. In 2020, let's say in 2020 you weren't doing so well. I'm saying in your mind, you felt like you weren't doing so well. Guess what? Is a time frame that is similar. The world's problems and the nature of how things were going during this time frame mirror the time frame we're living in. You know what, y'all? You don't have to have 2020 to have trouble. People were having all kinds of trouble, drama, self-made drama. A lot of the things that we do to ourselves. We create our own drama. We don't follow the scriptures when we're talking about who we need to marry, who we're going to date, and then you end up you're having drama, and you spend the rest of your life having drama, because if one of y'all doesn't obey the Lord and the other does, then you just basically you sealed yourself into that drama. So you don't. That's not 2020. That's however long you stay married. Now you can make a good relationship out of that. 1 Corinthians chapter 14 talks about how you can actually make the home set apart and be a different home than it would be if you were not a faithful Christian. Even if your mate isn't a Christian, you can still be the stronger element. That's a hard job, but it is something that's possible. You see what I'm saying? Just because it's 2020, I mean, or let's say this is all over in a year, then we just pack up Hebrews 6. No. But look at this. God is not unrighteous to forget your work and labor of love, which you have showed toward his name, in that you have ministered to the saints and do minister. Now, if you are a person who is a worker in the kingdom, let me tell you this. You appreciate individuals that ministered to saints and do minister. You will appreciate that. If your cause, like your vocation, you may be saying, why are you using that term? Because Paul uses that term. Our vocation in Ephesians chapter 4, verse 1. If your vocation is that you're going to minister the gospel, you don't have to be a paid pulpit preacher to minister the gospel. Evangelism is an open field. You can talk to people and give them information, teach them the doctrine all over the place. And if you're a person who's made that your vocation and individuals help you along, you will love them and you'll be praying for them. And you will know that there's going to be times where they need to be reminded that, guess what? God is not unrighteous to forget your work and labor of love, which you have showed toward his name, in that you have ministered to the saints and do minister. Now, let me give you a word here. I don't know if you use this word or not, but it is a word that you do need to get a grasp on. When you're talking about 2020 and 2021, 2020 and 2021 are not the totality of your life. Your life is going to be judged in its aggregate. We cannot judge ourselves that way. We do not have the capability to be able to see the beginning, the end, all of the events put in place and looked at. God does. And God is not basically saying, I'm not saying to you either, that you're condemned because of the way you lived in 2021, 2020, because now it's 2021. Hey, you made it through and you're still alive. So if you were going in the wrong direction, then you have the opportunity right now to change. And this is what we're trying to do with this book. We're trying to get your faith level back up. And the way we're doing that is we're basically letting you see the kind of people that that this letter was written to, so that you can see what they were going through. And perhaps you're going to see yourself, and you're going to hear the admonition, and you're going to see the means actually got them to feeling better. Hey, I'm feeling better right there. I hope that you are too, because this is the way it is with God. He is not wanting you to fail. And especially if you're the kind of person who has been a motivator, a person who has ministered to the saints and do minister, if the kingdom of heaven is very important in your life and you're a participant, you're a person who is active, you might say, well, I can't be very active. Listen, prayer is action. And there are people that pray, and there are people that God listens to. That is just an absolute. The prayers of a righteous man avail much. James 5:16. If you are a person, you can pray. And if you're a righteous person, then I want you to pray for me. Why? because it says that your prayers avail much. So right there, we're saying you can be praying. Don't stop praying just because times are hard and you don't feel like you're doing as well as you were. And you don't have the opportunities that you actually had before. So you can continue to pray. Now look at this, Hebrews 10:32. But call to remembrance the former days in which after you were illuminated, you endured a great fight of affliction. Wow, I just found out about something about these individuals. We're not talking to deadbeats. You know, a lot of times people, they really get down on the persons who this epistle was written to. Just a bunch of folk about to fall away and do good, no good, useless, just, you know, dead weight, whatever. Have you gotten to know these individuals? Well, I didn't think about that. I didn't think about going in and looking at the personal things that were said to these individuals in their letter. Well, that's how you get to know basically what is taking place, is you are looking at their mail and you're getting to read what was said to them about themselves. And now you're finding out that these individuals are some very quality folk. Look at that, Hebrews 10:32. But call to remembrance the former days in which after you were illuminated, you endured a great fight of affliction. Now, y'all, that's one of the reasons why I spent those 4 lessons early on getting you up on what is going on, like the progression of events through the book of Acts, so that you could actually know things like this great fight of afflictions. Man, these folks were in the early days, in the former days, after you were illuminated. In those early days, it was rough. Whoever's writing this letter, he's going to let us know more about himself. He's also going to give us more information about them, some timestamps about them. But this is a timestamp right here. And it's also telling you these are individuals who have been in the fight. Now, I'm saying right here, man, I am really very curious. I'm very interested, and I don't want this to turn out bad. I don't want to have this letter turn out. I don't want to misunderstand it. I want to be built up myself, and I don't really think I'm going to be that built up if I don't find out how this turns out. And one of the things I'm finding out right now is I'm finding out that the chances of it turning out well are higher than I actually was taught, because I was not taught that the Hebrew letter was a letter that was to individuals that were going to do well. So, but call to remembrance the former days in which after you were illuminated, you endured a great fight of affliction. You know, you can continue to read Hebrews chapter 6 also, and you'll find more information. I just gave you that one verse. Now, he gets down on them in Hebrews chapter 6 and talks about people that falls away. But he does say, we're convinced of good things about you all concerning your salvation. And he uses this particular point here. And so, what do you think about these people? These are some individuals that, you know, they may be having a moment. They may be having an extended time where things have really gotten difficult, because we're going to see later in our class segment, like after the first hour, we're going to see some of the things that are going on that we didn't hit before in succession. And you might say to yourself, you know what? If this had been laid out to me before, I would wonder how any of these individuals made it. Well, guess what? That's a statement that Jesus made. He said, will he find faith on earth? You ever think about that? He's actually talking about the time frame of the destruction of Jerusalem, but he asked the question, will he find faith? You know, will individuals stay the course? Because it is difficult. And when we're saying this, y'all, I want you to think about this. When we say it's difficult, we're actually saying, like in the book of Exodus, the means by which God brought about his magnificent plan to conquer Canaan started out in a very terrible, difficult way. They had to actually get crossways with the Egyptians while in captivity, and they had to agitate them, sit through agitation of 10 different judgments on their gods called plagues. Man, couldn't God have done that a different way? Well, basically, God wanted this to be done in such a way that he created some thinking that would be established. Hey, it's still going on. You know about the plagues, don't you? How about that? Would you have reversed it? If you had been in charge, you'd say, I believe we can get out of Egypt different than this. Can you get out of Egypt and still be talking about it in 2021? That's a lot of doing. See what I'm saying? God is actually accomplishing something, and it is difficult, but it is going to make them the most feared, heroic, mighty people that these people in Canaan ever heard of, and they're scared to death of them. Well, that makes it a lot better when you're at war, doesn't it? If everybody knows that you've got the biggest cannons and your weaponry and your generals and all of that, it's an advantage to be somebody that's a superpower. That's what we push for here in the United States. So, did you hear the point? What was I going for when I said that? God is doing something right during that time frame. When the epistle was written, God is in the process of trying to accomplish something. What is it? We keep talking about the destruction of Jerusalem. God is not just wanting to destroy the city of Jerusalem. He is trying to get the Jewish people, the Hebrew people that have not converted, he is trying to get them to convert. He is in a master plan, in the midst of a master plan that is by design going to have the best possibility of getting people who have been following a particular mindset for 1,500 years, a mindset that he put in their mind through the Mosaic Law. He is now trying to get them to accept their new Messiah, their new lawgiver, Christ, the anointed one. Anointed being, he is actually the Son of God. He had the Spirit of God come down on him at his baptism. Jesus Christ is the reigning Son of God. That's what he is trying to get them to accept. Why? Because he needs them. Why? Because the Hebrew people will be the people who are the most able to be able to connect all of these dots together and show the heathens. Well, who's the heathen? The heathen is the individual that doesn't know as much about the God of heaven and earth and the universe. Now, it doesn't mean they don't know anything. You cannot be in the world that is occupied by people like the Jews who are everywhere. You cannot be in a world and not know anything about the God of heaven. God is going to make himself known through his people all the time. You might be saying, people in China don't know about God. Listen, people in China do know about God. Why? If I had $1, I'd show it to you. I have $1, but I'm not going to pull it out. If you have $1, it still says, "In God we trust." And individuals in China, it doesn't matter where you are. I have been places where people had never seen a white man. Little kids cried when I walked through the village, but they'd seen $1. How about that? What does that mean? It is an attestation to the God of heaven that is the God of the United States Treasury. At least it still has that stamp on it. You see what I'm saying? God is not going to leave himself without witness. He is not going to leave this creation in such a state that they're not going to know about his existence. And that's our mind is made this way. Individuals who have $1, individuals who know about American money and the power of American money, they connect that with what we worship. You may not believe that. And you know what? I'll just leave you to it. What you need to do is travel, and you'll find out. The people all over the world, since World War II particularly, those individuals know about the God of the Americans. Why? Because the God of the Americans animated the Americans, and they came over there and they wiped all the enemies out. How about that? Hey, I didn't read that line somewhere. You know where I heard that? I heard that from a Marshallese man who was alive during the Japanese occupation of the Marshall Islands. He told me that. He said, we knew that the God that the Americans followed was the God that we wanted to follow because that God was destroying the Japanese. See what I'm saying? It's just that simple. So right now, as long as those people are still alive and their relatives are still alive, what do you mean by their relatives? That man died probably 20 years ago, something like that. His grandson, he died in, I think I went over there and did a funeral in 2000, between 2001 and 2004 or 5. So some of the grandchildren, some of the children of those individuals are just now dying. And what does that mean? It means they still remember and they still have that mentality about the greatness of God. That's how God works. So what is the point? Even if I belabored it, the point is you must realize that what these people are going through is something that is planned and it is always purposeful. And you have to believe that also. You have to believe that what you're going through is purposeful. Caleb did an excellent lesson this past Sunday on why it is the case, what it is the case that possibly God is doing. And he was showing church attendance being down, and he was basically saying, we're getting rid of some of these sectarian folk. They're not helpful. All they do is just populate the planet with different ideas that are not the idea that God wants us to actually be following. And that's what God was doing here in John 18:19. The high priest then asked Jesus of his disciples of his doctrine. God was fixing to remove that doctrine completely off of the planet. That's what his plan was. You might say, well, there's still Jews around. I can tell you this, they don't worship in Jerusalem, not the way that they worshiped before AD 70. They don't have a temple, and they don't offer sacrifices. They don't have a high priest. It's gone. They can play Judaism if they want to, but that's not the worship that God authorized for 1,500 years until his son came and put an end to it, because you're going to find out that it's much better the way it is now. So I love these people. I'm saying, I'm reading their mail, and I'm really endearing myself to them. They're very dear to me, because people who do this with me, that endure great fight of affliction, man, we are in it all the time, having all kinds of stuff going on. I mean, all kinds of stuff. You would not believe it if I were to tell you the stuff that goes on. And some of it you do see. Some of it you see because you watch YouTube. But some of the stuff that happens, we don't put it on. It's so crazy that we don't put it on to just all the brethren all over the place, because, you know, I really don't know how to put it. The people here are used to it. And I'm not talking about the Martinsville Church of Christ and the Danville Church of Christ. I'm talking about people in this local area. They're used to it. When they see us basically being held up by police, or they see us in the news and it's something derogatory, that would be some of our brethren be saying derogatory. Man, what in the world? These people, Martinsville Church of Christ, Danville Church of Christ, Johnny and Caleb and folks that work with them, they bunch of nuts. So you know what? I can't help that you don't know what it's like to be in a great fight of affliction. Now, I used to regularly tell people what I was doing when I was overseas. Oh boy, they were yaying and on when I was overseas. If I got in trouble with the law overseas, hey, go with it. You know, some country puts me on lockdown. Oh man, I was such a hero. Get locked up here, get in trouble with have a brush with the authorities. Oh man, that kind of stuff is hurting the church. But let it happen overseas, and man, I've had people actually call me by Bible names before. Ridiculous. Like I'm not in any kind of fight and affliction that these people went through. But you see what I'm saying? I am very endeared to these individuals. They endured a great fight of affliction. We don't want to lose them. That's what the writer's saying, and God isn't wanting to lose them either. And he's saying, call to remembrance the former days. When you think about the former days and you made it through some of the scuffles and different things that we've been through, we go through those in our brain and we remind ourselves, is this as hard as that? Nah, that was harder. You bring that to mind, and that's what he's doing, and we're getting to do it too. Here's some more of it. Look, we didn't change. 10:32, 10:33. Look at this. Hebrews 10:33. Partly, whilst you were made a gazing stock, both by reproaches and afflictions, and partly whilst you became companions of them that were so used. Oh man, I'm liking this. I am liking these folks. So this great fight of affliction, you endured a great fight of affliction, partly while you were made a gazing stock. You know what it means to be a gazing stock? You know what's the Bible say?
Yes, Mr. Robertson, could you please quickly say if you have a Sunday church service telecast that people like myself, we don't live in Virginia, can have you as our preacher? Meaning Sunday church through telecast or in Zoom or anything. Do you do that with your son?
No.
Or
no, we don't. Now, but here is my suggestion. You know, we do a broadcast on Sunday night where it'll be televised preaching on YouTube, and it emanates from this station, and it streams at the same time, 9 p.m. But here's the thing.
9 p.m. Eastern
Yes.
or Eastern?
Yes, 9 p.m. Eastern. Can I?
Okay, so
You're giving me a good opportunity. May I make a suggestion?
let's do it. Yep.
I don't know what circumstance you're in. I hope things are well. But here's something that I would like to say to members of the church. I'm assuming that maybe assembling.
They're assembling, but it's like very lukewarm. I've been going to the same Church of Christ for 2 years. I don't want to say where because it's very close to a person that you know, an acquaintanceship that's been to your tent meetings in the past, and he baptized me. I've been watching you guys since January.
Okay.
And what I've experienced, and I don't want to put down anybody, but what I've experienced is they play it safe.
Okay.
And so this family came over from another part of the country. If it wasn't for this person, he's like, have you been baptized? What is baptized? What is gospel? I've been going on and off for 2 years to this church before this family came, and it's not big. I mean, they're like maybe like 40 people in church, and then the Bible study class like 10 people. I was going through some stuff with my family and questioning, am I prepared? If something happens to me today, like, am I saved? And I've been baptized as a Catholic and all that, but I just felt like something was off, right?
Okay,
and I even cried in class, and I didn't mean to bring attention to myself, but I was like poor in spirit. But I wouldn't think like a pastor would be like, hey, like not to be my psychiatrist or nothing, but be like, hey, what's your name? Have you been baptized? How were you baptized? Never did this pastor ever take that step towards me. Now that here a year and a half later, COVID hit, I go back to church again, and I meet this family from another part of the United States that moved here, and they're acting more kind of like, not better than a preacher, but moving it forward, right?
Okay.
They baptized me and everything, but now that the community knows that I got baptized because this gentleman announced it, now everyone's treating me like, okay, now you're one of us. So I've been kind of feeling like, not an apostate, but funny thing is, I thought my love to go to church would even increase even more, and now I'm kind of like, no. But it's not because I'm lazy.
Okay,
it's not because I don't want to sit there. It's because
I got to interrupt you. I got to interrupt you. I have to interrupt you.
I don't know who's beeping over there, but they're not addressing the issues we got to fix.
I'm beeping.
Like you do.
I have to interrupt you. I have to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Ma'am, I have to interrupt you. Listen, this is a 2-hour broadcast, and it's costing a lot of money.
Yes, sir.
And you're taking a lot of it up. And I was going to tell you something that will help you. Listen, ma'am, only reason meeting at home is strange is because maybe you've not done it before. But people who have lived outside of the United States, who have done mission work, it is not bad to meet in your home and actually have a congregation than the one that you're actually dealing with.
Okay, that's why I wanted to watch y'all, because I still need guidance, and I can't always meet with everyone on Sunday. I didn't mean to take up your time, Mr. Robertson. You're so kind.
You can call me back. You can call me back, and I'll talk to you, but I wanted to get that out on the air, okay? I got to let you go.
You have two numbers, this one and your cell.
Okay, my cell is the one that you can call.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, now, folks, let me go ahead and say that. She gave me the opportunity, and I hated to have to move her along, but I mean, we are basically going through material that some of you are sitting here wanting to get this. And so if you have never met in your home, let me tell you, it is a very, very encouraging state of affairs. There is not anything second class about meeting in your home. And I'm not talking about meeting in your home and watching Zoom or whatever. I'm talking about worshiping in your home and worshiping the way the New Testament says to worship. And some individual ends up putting together a lesson. There are persons out there that can preach better, teach better than these preachers in these pulpits that are in the Church of Christ by a long shot. That I'm saying it is not essential for you to assemble with a group of individuals that are not being faithful to the New Testament. And what I mean by that is they may teach, but they don't do. They are not being faithful. You can't. Jesus condemns that. He says that's exactly how the Pharisees were. Do as they say, but don't do as they do. Matthew 23, 1 and 2. People that are just saying and they're not doing, that's not being faithful. And worshiping in your home, though correctly as the New Testament says, is a very gratifying experience for you, and it is pleasing to God, and it is New Testament. These folk were meeting in their homes. Now look, you're getting to know these individuals. Partly whilst you were made a gazing stock, he's writing a letter to individuals who were willing to be made a gazing stock. You need to look this word up. The idea of a gazing stock. You are a spectacle, both by afflictions. Do you know people like to watch people be afflicted? There are people that they get on YouTube and they watch stuff just to see people be afflicted. They don't think about it that way, but that's what's going on. They find these videos that are fight videos or these videos where people get attacked, and they watch that stuff over and over and over. It's basically making a gazing stock both by reproaches and afflictions. Now, there are people that like to watch people be reproached. They like to see people be put out there and made fun of, take their dignity away from them, reproach. They like that. There are people that love that. And he's saying you were willing to be the animation for them. They were having a good time looking at you, being afflicted, being reproached, having all of your dignity taken away. And he says, this is who he's writing to. I am crazy about these individuals. I'm saying, really, to a great degree, we have missed these folks. We read about Paul, we read about Silas and Titus and Timothy and Peter and Philip, different individuals. We read about women named Dorcas and Lydia, and you basically don't realize there's a whole host of individuals that are heroes that you don't know about. Now, he's going to go into Hebrews 11 here in a bit, and he's going to start bringing up some of the very well-known individuals throughout biblical history, world history. But look at these individuals. He is telling these individuals, this is your part. Man, these are great individuals. I don't know who they were. I do know who some of them are. You might be saying, oh, you think you do? I think I do. I think that the chances of these individuals being some individuals that you know as well, you just haven't thought through it. Persons who were early on a gazing stock, both by reproaches and affliction, partly whilst you became companions of them that were so used. Let me tell you, some of my favorite people in the world, all my life, have been individuals who helped me when I was being a gazing stock and being afflicted, and people were trying to take my dignity away and shame me, reproach, make me to be a reproach. I'm fine with that. It's the Christian life. You are going to have to be, as we noted on one of our other studies in Hebrews chapter 13, you're going to have to bear Jesus' reproach outside the gate. You are outside the Jerusalem gate, is what he's saying. You are going to have to come out of the world, and you're going to have to represent Jesus, and that means you're going to be different. You're going to have to point out stuff. You're going to have to live a different life. It's going to be difficult. People are going to make it hard on you just to make it hard on you, just because you're wearing the name Christian. They're going to try. And so, but here the other part is, partially, some of them actually went through it, and partly whilst you became companions of them, which were so used. I think I'll be friends with a person that is the least dignified person in Martinsville and Henry County, the most reproached person, the most vilified person. Hey, in a lot of areas, that's me. And you're very welcome to be friends with me. There are plenty of people out there that do not go to the Church of Christ. They do not assemble with me. They are not members of the Church of Christ, but guess what? They are some of my closest associates because they assist me. They assist me, and they know that I'm dealing with the things I'm dealing with. They know that I'm actually trying to make it a better place for them, for their children, by pushing back on all this false doctrine that is simply taking advantage of people. They know it. They know these pastors. Let me tell you something. Every mechanical technician in the 2 states area knows that preachers, pastors, bishops, all of them, sectarian, are in it for the money. You know how I know? Because they all tell me with one voice, they say they come in here wanting their pastor's discount. And a lot of them tell me that when they ask that, they actually charge them more because they want a pastor's discount when they know good and well that they're not doing anything for God really, but just trying to get a break by using Jesus' name. Man, the New Testament is full of it. And I'm saying persons who are technicians, mechanics, these folk that actually are involved in the car business, whether it's paint and body, whether it's putting motors in, whatever. These individuals all drive cars, these pastors, these religious folk, they come in, they want their Christian discount. Oh, they'll start telling you up front, I'm a Christian. Yeah, I'm a Christian. What are they trying to do? Come to your house and we'll do work for you. And if it's ever anything said about Jesus, they'll tell you, oh, I'm a Christian. And then do all kinds of unchristian things to you in the way that they do their labor. You see what I'm saying? We point that stuff out. There's a verse called purloining. It's just basically embezzlement. In Titus chapter 2, 9, 8 and 9. So all that kind of stuff, we're trying to, I'll leave that. I'll tell you on Wednesday night. So, look at this. I love these people. This is the kind of people that this letter is being written to. Don't you want them to stay? Hebrews 10:34. For you had compassion of me in my bonds. Whoa. Now we're really talking some very serious levels of, we don't want to lose these people. Whoever's writing this letter, this epistle, he basically has had interaction with these individuals when he was in bonds, gazing stock. There is nothing like being in bonds. There is nothing like being in handcuffs. I'm here to tell you. It doesn't really matter if you're in handcuffs because you did something right. It doesn't matter. Because what you're actually going through, people watching you, some laughing, some individuals are trying to figure out what your deal is. Some individuals take it for granted that you've done something wrong. If the police are involved, and they just, it becomes a circus, and they like it, and it's not fun. And so these individuals, they had compassion of me in my bonds and took joyfully the spoiling of your goods. Oh, man, I am loving these people. I am so hopeful that this letter was able to bring them comfort, consolation, solace, build their faith, strengthen them, and help them to stay the fight. Took joyfully the spoiling of your goods. Let me tell you something, folks. There's nothing like having your goods spoiled. And I've had it myself on multiple occasions. Why? Because I don't mind splitting a church. What does that mean? It means if you are assembling with people that are sheep and the goats are still with the sheep, I'm not working there peacefully. Just not going to happen. Well, who do you think you are, Johnny? I don't think I'm anybody. I'm reading a book that basically says the goats need to go. And you basically point the goats out, you present information that shows that they're goats, and you strengthen the sheep, and you convince the sheep, listen, all of us are going to end up smelling like goats. We're going to acting like goats because basically goats, generally, they end up being a corrupting element because the sheep are not able to overcome them. This is biblical, y'all. And so I'm saying, what happens? You have your goods spoiled. Last time I split a church, didn't get nothing. I'm saying, boom, a letter on Sunday, you're done. Now, the preacher before me, he had an agreement with them that if he decided to look for a job, change and go somewhere else, he would get 90 days. And they'd pay him 90 days, and he would get to look around for a job, and they'd get to look around for a new preacher. And so it's a verbal kind of thing, you know, a gentleman's agreement, Christian gentleman. So in the letter that I get, it basically says, you're fired. And if you say anything about what we're saying to you, then you're not going to get your 90-day severance. That was Sunday morning. I got up on Sunday night and read the letter. I don't know who they thought that I was. They might have thought I was one of their other preachers that they've had. I don't play that game. Why? I will joyfully have my goods spoiled before I'm going to give up the faith for a bunch of people that are really basically goats and some, in fact, wolves in sheep's clothing. So I'm loving these people. Man, this is the kind of thing, you want to read about some folks like this? I wish I had a copy of the picture of the book, and I'm not going to take the time to look for it, but I'm going to tell you about it. Arkansas Angels. We have probably 1,000 copies of it. Preachers in Arkansas, Western Arkansas, in the 1930s, 1920s, 30s, maybe 1910s, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. Fantastic. You know why? Spoiling their goods. Individuals, preachers that are basically going somewhere on an evangelistic job and daughter dies. They bury her on the side of the road. Individuals going through all kinds of horrific difficulties for the cause of Christ. Fantastic. Spoiling of your goods, knowing in yourselves that you have in heaven a better and enduring substance. This is a great book. I wish I may come back to this. I'm going to speed up a little bit. Hebrews 2:3. How shall we escape if we neglect so great salvation, which at the first began to be spoken by the Lord and was confirmed unto us by them that heard him? Now that's giving you some signals. These individuals to whom this letter is being written actually came into contact with folk who could do miracles, which puts them either in contact with an apostle or it could be an apostle. One or the other. You would have to have been in contact with an apostle in order to have gotten the Holy Spirit, or you yourself be an apostle who had the Holy Spirit. Either way, these individuals are in this class. They have taken care of this individual, or they have actually had compassion. It could be that they sent him something from somewhere like Philippi or whatever. Philippi was constantly sending Paul things from the very beginning of his work, and from the very first all the way through. But he says, this great salvation spoken to us was confirmed unto us by them that heard him. God also bearing them witness both with signs and wonders and diverse miracles and gifts of the Holy Ghost according to his own will. So, see, you're getting an idea of the familiarity and the association that these people have. These are people that we don't want to lose anybody. I'm saying to the caller that called earlier, we don't want to lose that group of individuals that she is basically saying are not really behaving in a fashion that she feels like that she's being edified and encouraged. And that's why she was questioning about whether we had broadcasted. I didn't tell her this, but I can say it now. We have live broadcasts all week long. 2 of them on Tuesday and Wednesday. This one's at 1 every Tuesday till 3, 1 to 3. Caleb comes on 10 to noon. They're live shows. They're new. They're studies of Judges and Hebrews. On Wednesday night, I'll be doing a live broadcast, Eastern time, 9 Eastern. On Thursday night, Caleb will be doing a live broadcast, 8 Eastern Sunday night, live broadcast, 9 Eastern. They're all basically new shows. They're fresh. They're in tune with what's going on. You will be edified. You will be encouraged. And you can worship. I can basically help this woman. I am sure that I can help this woman get connected with individuals that they could worship in their home and not be doing the Zoom church. So look at this, Hebrews 12:2. Looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross. Now he's moved from them thinking about their former life when they were eliminated and the great fight of affliction that they've endured and the camaraderie that he describes, and he is basically giving me insight into that I am enjoying so much, getting to know these individuals, reading their mail, and now he's got them looking at Jesus, who endured the cross, despising. Now the word despising, New Testament word for despising is lightly to esteem, is what that means. Lightly to esteem. When you despise somebody, you are doing that. You are lightly esteeming them. You're not giving them the proper respect. That's these individuals that are being reproached. That's what happens when you are lightly esteemed. Someone is reproaching you. They're basically not giving you the dignity that you should have. But, dignity is not a right. If you're a Christian, you basically are blessed when you are persecuted and you lose your dignity. That is something that you will be rewarded for now and later. It is a means by which people realize the depth of your faith and your willingness to follow Jesus Christ when you're going through those kinds of things, joyfully having your goods spoiled. Now, notice this. Endured the cross, lightly esteeming the shame. Jesus was willing to go through the indignities that he went through, and is set down at the right hand of the throne of God. For consider him that endured such contradiction of sinners against himself, lest you be wearied and faint in your minds. Boy, this is a key moment right here. I really meant to be at a break, and I'm going to have to stop for a moment. Now, I just have to hydrate. I think I'm going to make it through this, and I'm not talking about make it physically. I'm talking about get the material that I want to get. Just give me a second here. Listen, folks. This is a key point right here. He endured contradiction of sinners against himself. Look at him, lest you be wearied and faint in your mind. Listen, y'all, this is where it's happening in the mind. You have to keep your mind built up, strengthened. That's what edification is, upbuilding. When you assemble with Christian brethren, you are supposed to be built up. You are supposed to be getting something that keeps you from being wearied and fainting in your minds. See, this is where this takes place. Now, I know there's such a thing as good health. Good health is important. But mental health, established in your mind, strengthened, having the foundation of your faith firmly, steadfastly in place, is the key. And that's what this epistle is about. And he has them looking at Jesus, and he's saying, think about the things that Jesus went through. But let me tell you something, y'all. We're not done with chapter 1, and we're not done with the early parts, because basically this is the crescendo. He is actually here in a climax of having given them all this other information, and upon this other information, this now rests, and it is just absolutely amazing as you realize who these individuals are, what they're capable of, the times that they're going through, and how it is that he is maneuvering and the methodology by which he intends to get them back on their game. Don't fall away. We're convinced of better things of you, he says in chapter 6 and chapter 10. And so he says, don't faint in your mind. Don't be wearied and faint in your mind. Look, 2 Corinthians 10:4, I'm telling you, this is where it happens. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds, casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalted itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. Do you know why a lot of people are not assembling right now? It's because things they are imagining. They're imagining the health department's going to come in and do this. The police is going to come in and do this. The terrible virus is going to come in and do that. They have imagined all kinds of things that have not happened yet. Well, they've happened to some. I was talking to Doug in here just a while ago. Doug was in the hospital. I think they said he was going to be in the hospital 30 days. I don't think he was in the hospital for 30 days. He had coronavirus, had pneumonia. He's out, looks good, taking vitamins and moving along. Some people do get it. But what's going on in 20 and 21 with people and their religion is right here. Imaginations. This is what we're supposed to be looking at instead of all of this political garbage on TV. You know, I started on this just a minute ago and I'm going to finish it. What goes on your television during the news cycle is you've got competing groups that are trying to get you to dislike each other. That is all that's going on. You might as well be watching wrestling. WWW Raw. That's how fake this stuff is. These individuals are paid big bucks. This group over here has a particular ideology. This group over here has a particular ideology. And they're getting money by the boatloads to keep your ideology in play, this ideology down, vice versa, and trying to get you to hate each other. And it is a game that they're playing. They're really, when you get down to it, y'all, when you get down to it and you become a person who gets to know people, you don't pay attention to their color. You do not pay attention to that kind of stuff. White people like black people and black people like white people. People all respond to drama. And if people over here can get drama going and get you convinced that something's going on that isn't really going on, it's like the insurance business. Y'all, do you realize how much money is spent on insurance about things that people think are going to happen or imagine it's going to happen, and they're insuring themselves against it? It is simply ridiculous, the game that is being played in the insurance world. Now, if you're one of those people that don't like black people, that's your business. If you don't like white people, that's your business. I'm just saying, it's not inherent. It's these individuals that are putting a bunch of garbage in our mind, and we don't realize that we're supposed to be looking at something else, trying to save these people. I don't care anything about politics, and I don't think politics is the answer to anything. It's a bunch of losers up there, all of them dishonest. Don't care about you. That's just how it is. You think they think a minute about Martinsville, Virginia, while you down here arguing all kinds of politics between you and somebody else? You think those politicians are thinking about you? If you do think they're thinking about you, you're probably going to make it to heaven on a baby ticket. If that's your thought. Baby ticket. That means not much thinking ability. These folks do not care. They just want to be in office. And if it means keeping us at odds with each other? Not me. Listen, I have got too much going on to be having political discussions with you. And I am very certain that Jesus is able to take care of me and you during this time frame, which is nothing compared to other time frames that we have gone through, that people in front of us have gone through, these individuals have gone through. They were hunting these folk down. Can you imagine? These individuals had their goods spoiled, and he's encouraging them, stay with it, got to stay with it, keep teaching, keep assembling, keep helping other individuals. I know you're a gazing stock, I know you're going through afflictions, but hey, keep being companions, build up these individuals that are able to do things that you're not able to do. Keep your eye on Jesus. Don't faint in your mind. Don't imagine all this stuff that turns you against other individuals. Keep your faith up. Man, we have accomplished more this past year. We have put more broadcasts out in this past year than we have in some years, like 4 and 5 years all total. In not even the past year, just since December. And other people talking about we can't do nothing, man. And we're just poised, praying about something else that's just sitting right in front of us, and it's been waiting for 2 years on us just to be able to put something in a door of utterance. We just didn't have the strength. We didn't have the capacity. And guess where we got it? The station here just gave it to us. Man, things are good. And I imagined these things were going to be good. And I generally tell people about my imaginations. I tell them about my optimism. And one of the reasons I do tell them about my optimism is I am setting myself up to make sure that I don't end up being a failure in front of people. Man, Johnny's always talking about some grand idea. That's exactly right. And we get a lot of stuff done because we're dependent on our faith in God, who is in charge of all this. And that's how you do it. You tell people what you're going to do. And if you don't do it, then you just end up being a blowhard. Well, I'm not going to be a blowhard. And it's not that difficult. Listen, y'all, I know y'all can see me. I am not anything special. If we can do this, you can do it. We got people out there that have all kinds of skills, got all kinds of money, sitting on mounds of money. I'm talking about Christian people, and they can't get anything done. The poor people at PTP can't get their PTP going this year. Tons of money. And they're not able to have PTP. Couldn't they have thought of something else? I'm saying you basically can't get your hotel over in Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg, Sevierville, and so it killed your whole year. That's your year? Is that one event? Seriously, man. I don't understand why there was no, and I'm not promoting PTP. I can't stand PTP. Bunch of liberals mixing in with some good brethren. But I cannot imagine that they didn't have a backup plan. I mean, is that the only thing y'all know how to do is get together at hotels, resorts, and basically party? Now, imagination is where it's at. Don't faint in your mind. Don't be wearied. And look at these brethren that we're talking about. And convince yourself the battlefield is in your brain. And that's one of the reasons we put this stuff out there, Hebrews 12:5. And you have forgotten the exhortation which speak unto you as children. My son, despise not thou the chastening of the Lord, nor faint when thou art rebuked of him. Now listen, y'all, I think you have a wrong idea about chastisement, and the idea that he is basically saying that these individuals are being punished. That's not necessarily what's taking place at all. It's an exhortation. Did you hear that? And you have forgotten the exhortation which speaketh unto you as unto children. My son, do not lightly esteem, despise not thou the chastening of the Lord, nor faint when thou art rebuked of him. Listen, man, being corrected is the best part of being a child in a family. It is one of your greatest blessings is to be corrected. Why? Because it means that you're getting it right. When you have somebody that cares enough about you to correct you and make sure that you're doing a thing in the correct way, that is such a blessing. It is such a wonderful thing. And he's basically saying, you are getting that. And not only that, look at this, Hebrews 12:5. Look, he says, your exhortation, do not despise it, and don't faint through it. Now, those are the things that I'm emphasizing in verse 5 this time, but look at it this time. Hebrews 12:5, second look. And you have forgotten the exhortation which speaketh unto you as unto children. My son, despise not the chastening of the Lord, the correcting of the Lord. See how we're putting... Don't forget the exhortation. Well, where is the exhortation? And don't lightly esteem, nor faint. When what? When you're being corrected. Correction is a good thing. And also there are individuals that are being corrected because they have gotten off track a little bit. Listen, I don't mind being off track a little bit. Oh, really? Jesus said, if the blind lead the blind, they're all going to fall in the ditch. That's what happens when you get off track and you start listening to somebody else, especially in a time like this, telling you all kinds of horror stories. Man, it was great to see Doug and see how well he is doing, having gone through the coronavirus that is just the Antichrist. It's the worst thing that ever happened. Listen, man, that stuff is just getting off track and destroying Christianity, true Christianity, weakening brethren. Bad news. Correcting of the Lord. It's an exhortation. Hebrews 5:8. Prove it to me, Johnny. Though he were a son, yet learned he obedience by the things which he suffered. Jesus learned in the same fashion. When you're going through difficulties, having your goods spoiled, are you learning? When you're gazing stock, are you learning? When you're being reproached, are you learning? When you're being despised, are you learning? You're learning. Life is not ever going to be without any difficulties. And when you learn how to go through them mentally, physically, when you can control your anxiety, control your anger, control your imagination, all these different things that can hinder you, you're learning how to deal with those as you go through what? Suffering. And that's basically what you're hearing here. He said, look, listen, the correcting of the Lord, don't forget the exhortation. You're a son, you're children, and you're being exhorted. So I'm proving it right now. Though he were a son, yet learned he obedience by the things which he suffered. Now, that's very important in regard to Jesus, because Jesus is a person that you want to know what he's doing. I'm not talking about you are wanting to know what he's up to. You do want to know what he's doing in that sense too, and you'll learn in the book of Hebrews. But you want Jesus to know what he's doing. You want Jesus to know what you are going through. How did Jesus find out what you're going through? Listen, when it comes to omnipotence, all-knowing, God's Son had to taste life in order to taste death and suffering, in order to be what God intended for him to be for us. And what it ended up involving is chastening. Though he were a son, yet learned he obedience by the things which he suffered. If you're suffering right now through corona and you're still assembling and you're still trying to be faithful and you're still trying to reach people, it's likely you're suffering. But you're learning what it means to suffer. I mean, have you lost your job lately for the cause of Christ? Have you lost all your goods? No. I did last year, beginning of corona. Just like a sound of a Coke can being opened up. Just a big sucking noise, as Perot used to say. That's what you're going to hear when you get NAFTA going. That was my funds just taking off. So what I do about it? What are you talking about what I do about it? It's not the first time. See, I've learned how to go through these kinds of things. Why? Because I don't just swell up and be a baby and start whining about it. You try to have a backup plan. What's your backup plan? My backup plan, number one, is a lot of prayer and surrounding myself with people who are optimistic and not imagining all this other stuff that's going to happen that never did happen. Hasn't happened yet. I surround myself with those kind of people. That's what 1 Corinthians 15:33 says. It says, evil companions corrupt good morals. I surround myself with companions that are optimistic, and I try to encourage them. And I had a guy called Caleb yesterday from Arkansas, going to move to Virginia. That's the second person in 2 weeks. The other guy drove here all the way from Texas in one run, stayed 12, 13 hours, and turned around and drove right back all at one time. Why? Had to see what's going on in Martinsville. I want to surround myself with people like that. And basically, you're hearing that Jesus had to learn. Now, what is that so important about? Here's why it's important. Every high priest taken from among men is ordained for men in things pertaining to God, who can have compassion on the ignorant and on them that are out of the way, for that he himself also is compassed with infirmities. The high priest is an individual that is supposed to be concerned about you and your infirmities. Jesus learned by his suffering. Though he were a son, even the son suffered. As a matter of fact, that's what he came into the world for. He came into the world to suffer all the suffering that could be put upon him that actually was supposed to be put upon us. He took it, he suffered it, he bore it, and now we have the opportunity to have a high priest who knows what it is like because he learned it. How did he learn it? By something these individuals are chafing at, or he's trying to get them not to chafe about it, and you shouldn't be chafing either. I am just the very idea. You know, think about getting a t-shirt that said, I lived through Corona. You know what? Even if I had physically died, I still would have lived through Corona because I'm not giving up my faith. Just because I change dwelling like this raggedy body that I have here, just because I'm not in it anymore, I didn't die. I still lived through Corona. And I tried to live faithfully too. Boy, trying to push, trying to encourage, trying to strengthen. I hope that we haven't been too rough on these individuals that are letting the health department do things to them and create imaginations in their mind and all this kind of stuff that's going on. I know some of you folks are in different states that have it harder than we do. We're in a blue state that is they're pushy. But I'm saying, I lived through Corona, even if I did change from this physical body. And the high priest that actually suffered and learned what it's like to live in one of these bodies, guess what? We're supposed to be looking at him. Hebrews 2:9. But we see Jesus, who was made a little lower than angels for the suffering of death, crowned with glory and honor, that he, by the grace of God, look at this, should taste death for every man. He had to be in this body so that he could taste death and so that he could suffer, so that he would know what it's like when you're suffering, and you're supposed to have consolation. You're supposed to get encouragement. Where am I going to get this? Oh, you're in the right book. This is what this book is about. These individuals had just been said to in chapter 2 that they had been in contact with individuals that either were apostles or had been given miraculous gifts by the apostles. They are individuals who had had compassion on the individual who wrote the letter when he was in bonds. They're individuals who had been companions of people that were willing to be a gazing stock and bear reproaches. Man, their former days, remember them. And realize that Jesus did it too, and he did it so that he could actually know, look at this, for it became him for whom are all things and by whom are all things, in bringing many sons into glory, to make the captain of their salvation perfect or complete through suffering. He couldn't be complete if he didn't know what suffering was like. He couldn't be complete if he didn't taste death. He knows what death is like. He knows what the grave is like. He knows what it's like to have to say, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Jesus has dealt with all of that and then some, dealing with the temptation directly of Satan in Matthew chapter 4. Jesus basically had to do all of this, look at this, to bring us to glory. Are you going to give up? Why? What is so bad and what is so good on the other side of give up that would convince you that you need to give it up now? I mean, man, y'all. Hebrews 4:14. Seeing then that we have a great high priest that is passed into the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God, let us hold fast our profession, for we have not an high priest which cannot be touched with the feeling of our infirmities, but was in all points tempted like as we are, yet without sin. You need to get to know these people. I'm saying when you're reading, look for personal attributes. Put yourself in this book and realize that these are some very, very great characters that are getting this epistle. You're getting a chance to read their mail. Who in the days of his flesh, when he had offered up prayers and supplications with strong crying and tears unto him that was able to save him from death, and was heard in that he feared. Listen, you think Jesus doesn't know what it's like to be at the end of your rope? You think Jesus doesn't know what it's like to be scared? To be thinking about wishing that he didn't have to go through all this? What have you been reading? Go and read Jesus' time in the garden with his apostles before his arrest. And realize that in that time frame, he offered up prayers and supplication with strong crying and tears unto him that was able to save him from death, and was heard in that he feared, but he still went to the cross. And the question is, man, are you going to give up? Jesus talking about going to the cross and you're giving up because of Corona? Oh, man. You know, I just can't even believe that people would even consider such a thing. Do you realize there's people that live in famine-ridden lands all the time? They have pestilence all the time. Do you know that there is a fly in Africa that lays eggs in your skin, and they basically turn into boils, and that's the birthplace of the baby larva? And you just don't escape it. And we're talking about giving up. In America, we have the best healthcare system in the entire world. We're talking about giving up our assembly and giving up our such a blessing to be able to be a part of the kingdom of God and the joys associated with knowing if I'm gone from this physical body, that I am going to be with the Lord. And brethren like this that we're reading about, I hate to skip, but what should I do? 2:35. Wherefore in all things it behooved him to be made like unto us, unto his brethren, that he might be a merciful and faithful high priest in things pertaining to God, to make reconciliation for the sins of the people, for in that he himself has suffered, being tempted, he is able to succor them that are tempted. Listen, I'm pressing you to be faithful, to stay faithful, to remember your former days, your early days when you obeyed the gospel, all the difficulties you went through with your family and your friends, the different people that were ragging on you about your decision to become a member of the Church of Christ, a Christian in the Church of Christ. Don't give that up now. And don't think that God has forgotten all the good things that you did and all the help that you've been to the gospel all this time. He hasn't. And also he's saying right here, he's a merciful and faithful high priest in things pertaining to God to make reconciliation. We'll go there again. We're just basically giving you a chance to learn these people. Job 5:17, here's their exhortation. Behold, happy is the man whom God correcteth. Remember he said, don't forget the exhortation about chastisement. Behold, the man is happy is the man to whom God corrected. And I know that Job didn't say this. One of his friends did, but it is the case because the psalmist said it. He that planted the ear shall not he hear. He that formed the eye shall he not see. He that chasteneth the heathen shall he not correct. He that teacheth man knowledge shall he not know. The Lord knoweth the thoughts of man, and their vanity. Blessed is the man whom thou chasteneth, O Lord, and teacheth him out of the law, that thou mayest give him rest from the days of adversity, into the pit be digged for the wicked. Now, I'm going to move on now. Now, folks, I have a secondary portion that I want to go through. Let me just take a break here. And I have 20 minutes. Man, call this a lightning round. Okay, find which one of these I'm on and find the top. All right. Now, we want to talk about this idea of partly whilst you were made a gazing stock both by reproaches and afflictions, and partly whilst you became companions of them that were so used. Boy, this is broad. I mean, we were touching it. But this is, when you start breaking this down, this is something. These individuals there are some amazing folks. I wish that I had more literature about them. And I wish I knew more people that were like this. And I want you to just drink this up and realize you need to look all through the New Testament at this idea The idea of people that were suffering and the other people that were aiding them, and think about the times that you've been aided and encouraged. Now, and I want you to think about why it happened. Are you ready? Matthew 15:12. This is a psychological section, and it's basically, I'm doing this to try to help you to push back what is the normal. Then came his disciples and said unto him, Knowest thou that the Pharisees were offended after they heard this saying? Now, Jesus is talking to the Pharisees about the fact that you all have laid down doing right by elevating your traditions. You're actually not even following God anymore because you're teaching for doctrine the commandments of men. And it scared the apostles. They basically said, do you not know the Pharisees were offended? Do you not know who Pharisees are? Do you not know who the Pharisees are? These are individuals who can make you a gazing stock. That's who they are. They can punish you. They can have you in bonds in just a minute. And this is Matthew 15. These individuals have been with Jesus, but being with Jesus to this degree, you don't, y'all, changing your mind, your thinking process, where you do not think naturally, you think spiritually, it is a very it's a difficult thing. Just let me ask you this. Would you sell everything you have and go and live in a third world country? You think you would? I know I would. I've done it twice. And let me tell you something. Not only did I have to fight my own brain to live in a third world country, I had to fight a lot of other people because they were saying, you're out of your mind. You don't have to go live in the Marshall Islands, and you sure don't need to take those kids over there. They'll never see their grandchildren, their grandparents, and they'll get sick. And my mother-in-law even showed me a picture of somebody that was strapped to a coconut tree during a hurricane. And she said, do you not realize they do not have the facilities to be able to facilitate you going through a hurricane? I'm just like, are you trying to scare us to death or what? What is wrong with y'all? We are taught to evangelize the entire world. And I'm saying to you, thinking like that does not come naturally. Thinking like this is what most people do. Like when they see us out mixing it up with the police, they're like, that y'all are out of your mind. Listen. Do you not realize that there are people in high places that can ring up the police, and the police do not mean us any harm? They don't know any different. They just know that they trust these people and they cannot believe that these people would lie to them or would falsely represent the situation, and they come out in their police car and they basically get after us. That's what happens. And you might say, well, I've never put myself in that position. Well, you know what? You're never going to really get into Christianity if you're not willing to go to where these people are. Listen, we're reaching people. If y'all are sitting up in the building and that's all y'all do is just sit up in the building singing how great thou art and it is well with my soul, just as I am, and you're not doing anything, you're not going anywhere in the right direction either. I'm saying, look at this. Now, when they saw the boldness of Peter and John, wait a minute. Now, Jesus, you offended the Pharisees. What has happened? Now, when they saw the boldness of Peter and John, perceived that they were unlearned and ignorant men, they marveled and they took knowledge of them that they had been with Jesus. Something has happened. Not only did he offend them, but they went ahead and killed him. But he raised from the dead, and now here are the men who were with him when he was offending those people, and they were listening to those things that I said to you that Jesus went around saying about himself and that he was going to accomplish. They were listening to that stuff, and they were being convinced that, in fact, he is the Messiah. He is doing the things that the Messiah said he was going to do. He is accomplishing the things that he said he was going to do, and one of those things is he was going to go to Jerusalem, and he was going to suffer, and he was going to die, and he was going to raise from the dead, and he did it. And not only that, we've been baptized in the Holy Spirit. They had been baptized in the Holy Spirit, and they had the power to do the same miracles that Jesus was doing when he was on the face of the earth, and they are not afraid of death. And these people are looking at them, and what are they saying? These folk been with Jesus. Look at them. What? Look at this. What does it mean to be with Jesus? John 18, verse 4. Jesus is in the garden, and he sees them coming. What does that mean? He sees a group of individuals coming with staves and sticks and swords, and he knows that Judas is with them, and he knows they're coming for him. Jesus, therefore, knowing all things that should come upon him, went forth and said unto them, Who are you looking for? As soon as soon then as he had said that unto them, I am he, they went backward and fell to the ground. Then asked he them again, whom seek ye? And they said, Jesus of Nazareth. Here I am. Jesus answered, I have told you that I am he. If therefore you seek me, let these go their way. Now, could you do that? Could I do that? Mm-mm. You've been sitting here telling us all this different stuff. I'm not telling you I can do that. I have trouble standing still when the police roll up. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to continue to do the things that I do. I had trouble getting my stuff together to go overseas. Took me a whole year to raise the funds to live for 5 years in the Marshall Islands. It was hard. I didn't like staying away from my wife, having to be out on the road, asking people to promise in advance to help me evangelize that country and 2 other countries that I was responsible for in the Pacific. It was hard. I wanted to quit several times. And one of the elders that was basically in charge of encouraging me, I don't know if there were others that would do it for the other guys, but the one that was in charge of encouraging me kept me going. People praying for me kept me going. People helping me kept me going. I am not about to tell you that I'm ready to die. I'm going to die, but I'm not just saying that I'm fixing to walk, right into the crowd of individuals that I know are taking me in to kill me. Look at this. They laid hands on them and put them in whole until the next day, for it is now eventide. Now, they had been with Jesus. You just saw how Jesus was. And now you see them, and they're right up in the temple, and they're preaching in Jesus' name, and they've just performed a miracle on a man 40 years old, who everybody knows was lame. And so what happened? They put hands on them, put them in jail. Matthew 26:51. Now listen, y'all. We need to realize these people were coming along incrementally. In Matthew 26, which is the other account, we were reading John 18 when Jesus gave himself up, I'm him. And in Matthew's account, and behold, one of them which were with Jesus stretched out his hand and drew his sword and struck a servant of the high priest and smote off his ear. That's Peter. He smote off the high priest's servant's ear. So, y'all, all these people that talk about Peter denying Jesus 3 times, you need to give Peter a break. Peter was ready to start the revolution, pulled his sword out to defend Jesus. He said he would defend him to the death, and he set out to do it. And Jesus said, put your sword up. I could call 12 legions of angels, heal the ear, put the ear back on. Y'all, it is hard to know what to do. And I know that some of you are trying to figure out what to do at a time like this. Can you imagine what Peter was thinking? Okay, I just tried to defend you. You're telling me to put up the sword, and they're coming to get you. What next? Well, what happens next is he ends up being close enough to see what's going on, and one of the servants of the high priest, being his kinsman, who ear Peter cut off, said, did I not see thee in the garden with him? And he ends up denying Jesus. Listen, one minute you got your sword out and you're going to cut somebody's ear off for Christ. Next minute you're denying him. What does that tell you? It tells you we need each other. We need the exhortation. We need the encouragement. Man, a guy who would actually put his life on the line for you. Ron says, I never met the man. This is the circumstances that can actually happen that we have to go through. And this is why we're studying this kind of book. And this is why we're studying this kind of epistle. And this is why we're doing this class. And this is why we're doing the things that we're doing during this time frame, try to encourage you. We're not giving up on the brotherhood at large. Think again. We're not. But we are having to say correction is a good thing, isn't it? Don't forget the exhortation that says if you are chastened as a son, even Jesus learned obedience through the things which he suffered. You're learning. Maybe. I hope it's not the case. I don't know. I shouldn't hope. I'm going to let God be in charge of what's next. I start to say, I hope it's not getting worse. If it has to get worse to get better for people to be spiritual, then let's have it. Bring it on. So notice how this actually happened. They are different people. Acts 4:17. But that it spread no further among the people, let us straightly threaten them. You put us in jail, And now you're going to threaten us, that they speak henceforth no more in his name. 421. So when they had further threatened them, let me tell you something, it is not a peaceful thing. It is not an easy thing to have the police be threatening you. We have had the police threaten us a lot. It is not easy. They let them go, finding nothing how they might punish them. See, that's what you know. They wish they could punish you, but they can't, so they're threatening you because of the people. For all men glorified God for that which was done. In our case, it could be that we get threatened and let go because we have a very, very, very fine lawyer. And we are very blessed with individuals around the brotherhood and the world that help us to make sure that we are blessed like that. In other words, represented, so that we aren't just full out reproach. Acts 4:22, for the man was above 40 years old on whom the miracle of healing was showed. Acts 4:23, and being let go, they went to their company, their own company. Now this is where I was going. Let's back up right quick. I said, this is something we need to look at. Made a gazing stock, both by reproaches and afflictions, and partially while you became companions of them that were so used. Peter and John are being so used. And these individuals that are in their company, look at this. This is how you actually are able to make it. Being let go, they went to their own company and reported all the chief priests and elders had said unto them. I wish that I had saved the time to go to Acts chapter 4 and let you read the entire context, because it is a fabulous context. You need to write it down, 4:23, and read what they end up saying. This company encouraged them so much, it is just unbelievable. That's why we're so thankful to be in Martinsville, Virginia, and Danville, Virginia, and associated with you other brethren throughout the country, like the brethren in Maryland, other brethren that are in New Hampshire. I don't want to forget anybody. I just got a call from that I wasn't able to take during the broadcast from brethren in Florida. These people that are in the company, folk that are members of the Church of Christ and that are still being faithful, that are trying, cannot live without them. And that's basically what that was about. Hebrews 10:33, you became companions. Look at that. He's talking to individuals that have been companions of individuals that have gone through lots of things. Like what? Headlines. Preachers do jail time. Acts 4:2, being aggrieved that they taught the people. They preached through Jesus, the resurrection of the dead. They laid hands on them and put them in a hole until the next day, for it was eventime. These are the headlines you'd be reading in the New Testament day. Headlines, preacher does jail time. Acts 5:17, and the high priest rose up, and they that were with him, which is the sect of the Sadducees, and were filled with indignation, laid their hands on the apostles and put them in common prison. How about if you saw those headlines coming out of this area? What would you say about us? Headlines, one dead. Hebrews 12:15 and 16. Oh man, I'm going to continue this. Just one dead, and you don't know what Hebrews 12:15 and 16 says? Let me tell you something. Hebrews 12:15 and 16 is very important. Let me end with it. I'm just going to go ahead because we're there. One dead. What? Church in Jerusalem just had one person die. Hebrews 12:14, 15. Looking diligently lest any man fail of the grace of God, lest any root of bitterness springing up trouble you, and thereby many be defiled, lest there be any fornicator or profane person as Esau, who for one morsel of meat sold his birthright. Let me tell you something, folks. We just lost our television. So I can't tell. I'm assuming that Comcast is doing a weekly test right in the middle of my last 8 minutes. So let's see. That's ought to be against some kind of regulation for them to get to do that. All I'm doing is checking for the last few minutes and see, there we go. So folks, this is what I was doing as Comcast did a test right at a moment where we were just about, to make a huge point. Looking diligently lest any man fail of grace of God, lest any root of bitterness springing up trouble you, and thereby many be defiled. Listen, this is a precious institution that we have, the Lord's church. And we need to be constantly looking for the individuals who are the root of bitterness that are going to cause trouble. Profane persons like Esau, who for a morsel of meat sold his birthright. You have individuals that want to get in, but they don't want to be like they're supposed to be. Sometimes they don't know it. They think they want to be a member of the Lord's church because it is so exciting. They see all the things that we're doing, the different people that are coming and going. They think they want to be a part of that, but they're doing it for the wrong reason. And they end up being a root of bitterness, and many individuals end up being messed up. What are we talking about? Ananias, Acts 5:5, headlines, one dead in the church in Jerusalem. Ananias, hearing these words, fell down and gave up the ghost. Great fear came upon them all that heard these things. And it was about the space of 3 hours after, when his wife, not knowing what was done, came in, and the headline changed, 2 dead in the church in Jerusalem. Why? Root of bitterness. Individuals who were there not for the right reason, and they were taken out by God. Let me tell you something. If you're messing around in the Church of Christ and you're causing trouble, I would not want to be in your shoes for anything in the world. I would not want to be in your shoes, would not want to be a part of what you're doing. Why? That man's wife ended up dying. You know, it's one thing for him to die, but then his wife dies, she's in on it, and you just literally, when you think about it, oh, man. Took his wife down. And what was all that about? Wanting to be seen as an individual who gave all of his goods, or all of the things that, all the money that he had sold a particular property, he wanted to let it be seen that he had given all of the proceeds, but he didn't. See, he wanted the praise of men, and there are so many individuals that they don't realize how dangerous it is to be playing around and trying to act like something that you know you're not. And I'm just saying, look at it. Think about it cost him his wife. How many individuals have cost their behavior, like their unwillingness, like playing church? And you lose your children. You're going to lose your children unless something happens, unless they end up coming across a broadcast like this where somebody is correcting, as Hebrews 12:5 said, chastisement, correcting and trying to help them see. And let me tell you something, y'all. There are plenty of individuals that is exactly what they said happened to them when they first started watching. They told us they began to realize that they weren't practicing New Testament Christianity. And so what does it mean, these people that are watching? I'm going to let you basically see what I mean by that. Are there people watching? What does the Bible say? Can you see that? 2,235,142 views. There are people that are calling us all the time, and they're saying, man, we saw what y'all are doing, and I'm telling you, we are not anything special. I am trying to get people to realize this is not something that is extraordinary in the sense that it cannot be repeated. I know places that people could get on right now for nothing if they just had to get up and go to do it. But individuals, we're talking about you losing your children. We're talking about the headline, 1 dead, and within 3 hours you got 2 dead in the church in Jerusalem. And all because the husband sold the land, they conspired. He ends up dying while she's not there. She comes in and they ask her, did she know about it? And then she died 3 hours later. And these two that would have been a root of bitterness, what happened? God took them out. Let me tell you, you think God's not watching? God is watching this thing unfold, and He knows individuals whose hearts are not right. And their agendas are motivated by something other than wanting to spread the gospel, being willing to be a gazing stock, companion to those that are gazing stocks, being willing to be a reproach. Man, it is nothing. I'm saying really and truly, when you talk about being reproached, losing your reputation, when you lose your reputation for Christ, immediately you become somebody. You become one of the individuals that we're reading about and you become a part of another group. Look at this. We're going to close with Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1. Wherefore, seeing we are compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight of the sin which does so easily beset us, and let us run with patience the race that is set before us. There are so many individuals that have gone on before who were willing to be reproached, and when you lose your reputation and are reproached, you immediately become a part of a group of individuals like the Hebrew brethren that we were reading their mail. I look forward to having our next class with you next week. Same time, 1 p.m. Join us tomorrow at 10 a.m. for What Does the Bible Say School, the Book of Judges. And I'll be with you on Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Caleb will be with you 8 p.m. Eastern on Thursday night. God bless you always. As far as What Does the Bible Say? Good afternoon.